SOAL Night Live number 26. Tonight my guest is Lyle Workman. And without further ado, hey, well, thank you for being our guest tonight. I'm thrilled to get a chance to chat with you. And
Sure.
I enjoyed listening to the new album this week. I appreciate you letting me have an advance copy to check out. And, you know, I don't know if you knew it in advance, but it was right up my alley. You know, I'm a big progressive rock fusion guy. And so what have you been doing lately? I imagine being a working musician, you've got a lot of work going despite the fact that the whole world is turning upside down. Is that a safe bet?
Well, you know, I've been working a lot on my own record because stuff has slowed down in the film and TV world because of COVID and lack of filming. So things that are being finished now in the post-production area, and so it's not much of it out right there at this point.
Okay.
So I'm just waiting, you know, like a lot of other composers, for things to start. You know, they're starting to film now. I don't know how much they're doing in California, but in Vancouver and other places, I don't think we can go to another country to film.
No,
We're domestic.
Strictly.
So yeah, definitely been it's hit the industry pretty substantially.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry to see that. I know the industry is just hurting left and right, and everybody's just kind of in a state of limbo. So praying something gives in a good way.
Yeah.
So we're just going to have to cross our fingers. But in the meantime, you know, you have this awesome album, and I believe I heard that you've been working on it for a couple of years on and off. Is that right?
Yeah, off and on in between other work. I would just write and just kind of put it together.
Yeah.
Actually, over about 4 years' time.
Okay. Fill our readers and viewers in on your previous solo albums. You've had a few of them, and they're all really cool. I almost would liken them, if you like the Dixie Dregs, you might like it, but you're a lot more orchestral in a way on a lot of them. So maybe that's just my impression. But if you could...
Certainly on the new one, it's because it's got a 63-piece orchestra that we recorded at Abbey Road. So that there's a little bit of it, a string section in my last record. And some orchestral elements, but not to this degree. This was...
You're not an orchestra.
Yeah, I wanted a full-on orchestra. It's on 9 of the 11 songs has orchestra.
Okay. And remind folks your other albums, what they're called and when they came out, roughly.
The first was called Purple Passages. It came out around when was that? 99, I guess. And then I've had I've had 3 records prior to this one right now. You know, in between 1999 and today. So the last one was out 10 years ago.
Yeah, and that was called Tabla Rosa?
Harmonic Crusader.
Harmonic Crusader, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's an excellent one as well. Yeah, really
Well,
like it. But the new one's called Uncommon Measures. And I was wondering what inspired the title. Did you take any uncommon measures when you made it?
I think it just it struck me as a pretty good indication of what the music is. It's very hard to define. It's really not a specific genre. It sort of dances in between many of them, between rock and jazz and classical and pop even.
Absolutely. You know, I can't...
All in there is all sort of mixed in. There's, you know, equal parts Electric Light Orchestra and Mahavishnu Orchestra, or, you know, it's just all the orchestras are
together on one disc. Yeah, that's right. Well, I love that approach, and ELO was my gateway drug to progressive rock.
Oh, okay.
I think when I was like 11 or whatever, and I still love them. I'm actually in an ELO tribute band at the moment.
Oh, wow.
I play guitar, and it's so much fun, you know. And, you know, we can't resist going from the major to the minor every time we hit a 4 chord. Because that's Jeff Lynne's bread and butter, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Or we'll do a backdoor dominant, you know. It's all the same. Sure. But, you know, it was...
The first record with Roll Over Beethoven, or was it like later with Face the Music? Or one of those?
Well, we mostly do the hits, because when you come to an ELO show, you're going to expect to hear the stuff that basically Jeff is playing and they have a lot, and there's like probably at least 10 top 10 hits, so there's a lot of good stuff to dig into that the audience really responds to because it really hits those nostalgia buttons when we play it.
Sure.
But we try to work in some lesser known ones, and we do the overture from, the first song on the first album.
Oh yeah, sure. Yep.
Yeah, that's such a great
stuff. That first record was really got out there.
Yeah, it really was.
All pieces.
Yeah, he really smoothed things out by the time he got to say Face the Music.
Right, yeah.
Got into his style that pretty much followed through after that. But I love stuff like Fire on High. It's like
that's
best acoustic sound ever,
Yeah. I like On the Third Day. There's some really good songs on that one.
Oh, yeah.
Heart is Dead and Oh No Not Susan. And I just, huge fan.
Oh, yeah.
I saw when they played at the Forum. Was that 2 years ago? It was the best sounding concert I've ever heard in my life.
I saw them here in Atlanta at Phillips Arena, I think it was. And yeah, just stellar, just amazing. And he sounds like he's just been preserved in amber for the last 30 years or something.
Yeah.
So
when he played at the Grammys a couple of years ago, I got a call. For a minute, I thought I was going to join him.
Oh, wow. That would have been awesome.
Another guitar player. And so I was so excited about that, but then I got a call that said, that we've seen the stage plot. And we're going to have to do a smaller version of the band.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're not going to bring on another guy. So I was so bummed out.
No, maybe it'll still happen sometime.
Yeah.
You never know. Okay. So we talked a bit about the new album. Now, when is it going to be out officially, and where can we get it?
Well, I'm in the middle of negotiating with a label, and at this point, I don't know if it's going to go that way or whether I'll have to self-release it. So I don't really have any concrete information right now, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, we'll just kind of keep our eyes on your page.
My page will certainly. Announce how people can.
You betcha. If you want to drop by for a bit when we do the show in the future and let everybody know when it's out.
We can talk about more in detail.
That'd be fantastic. I will say, it's almost like it obviously bears the fruit of your soundtrack work and experience for the previous 10 years.
Well, that's exactly right. Over the past 15 years or so,
mm-hmm.
I've been doing film scores, working with orchestras, and I've got really tight with an orchestrator who's fantastic. His name is John Ashton Thomas. He's done something like 140 films, and he's really, really good. And we sort of bonded over our mutual love for, progressive rock and jazz and classical and all that stuff that you would talk about on your show.
Yeah.
And so I always wanted to bring him in on one of my records, and so he has a pretty big hand on this record. He conducted the orchestra at Abbey Road.
Now, did you record like the rhythm tracks with Tim and Vinny, like there in California, and then you went to Abbey Road for the strings? Is that right?
Exactly right. So everything was done except for strings. And so we just added those on. And it's not just Vinny and Tim LaFay. There's Toss Panos is on it.
Oh, awesome.
Ed Laboriel Jr. is on it. Donald Barrett's another great drummer, is on it. A couple of the bass players. Sam Wilkes plays bass on it. Well, Tim LaFay is on quite a few songs. Matt Chamberlain plays drums on a track.
Awesome.
So Jeff Babko is an amazing keyboard player here in Los Angeles. He's on the record as well.
Hang on, I'm just going to need to fix my marquee so we don't forget where we are.
Oh, okay.
There we go. It's good to have
production value you got there, my man.
That's right, man. Branding. I got to be consistent. Okay, so I'm really excited, and I'm glad I got a chance to have a listen to it just for my ears. No. Don't ask, folks. You can't. You'll have to wait. But
at some point
it'll be worth it.
When we're getting close to a release, I'll probably not leak, but I'll have a song up.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I love your guitar playing. I always do anyway. Okay. But I'd say at times you reminded me. Probably the guy you reminded me the most of was Alan Holdsworth, but not as harmonically out there.
I certainly love Alan Holdsworth too. Who doesn't?
Yeah, you just had a certain fluidity that reminded me of him. So.
Yeah. I love Alan.
So So yeah, I mean, there's some amazing guitar playing on this, but it's always in service of the music. It isn't like, look at me.
That's the very last thing we do.
But you will be going, wow, when you hear it. Trust me, it's awesome.
Yeah, I'm more interested in the composition and the structure of the piece, and then usually what happens is that I end up with a section as an afterthought, like, well, I guess this will be okay for solo, but never is anything an excuse to solo. It's just for color. There's no lyrics in there, so I've got to provide some solo areas, and then there's keyboards and there's violin and guitar.
Yeah. How did you go about sort of arranging some of the longer pieces? I know there's one on there that was about 10 minutes long, Arc of Life. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, that's the first song I started writing. I was actually inspired by a John Scofield song called Honest I Do. It's on a record called 54, and it's with the Metropole Orchestra out of the Netherlands. And it's just a great piece with a great arranger, Vince Mendoza. Incredible, like Gil Evans, modern Gil Evans style.
Oh, beautiful. Arranger.
And I was really moved by the song. It was a beautiful piece. And I want to write something like that. So that kind of started it. And then it you start here and then you end up in this whole other area. But that was the beginning of it. Okay. But that piece that you're talking about is about 10 minutes and 20 seconds long, somewhere in that area.
Yeah.
And my idea, what's interesting for that song is that that's one on the record where usually what I do is I will map out, I'll do all the mapping out on samples and do my arranging and orchestration that way. But this one, what I did is I used the guitar for orchestration and with lines that were to be counterpoint, and I gave the track to my orchestrator. So now instead of giving you samples, here's 25 tracks of guitar parts. They're supposed to be cello, horns, whatever, but you arrange it the way you see fit. And then also, if you hear other embellishments, then go ahead and do it. So that was kind of an unusual one of the records where I didn't really do an arrangement other than suggestions for counterpoint and melodies and harmony. That's all represented with orchestration and some guitar in the background there as well. And the rest of it, I did do arrangements on a keyboard with sample libraries.
Now, I was thinking, does a tune like that just kind of flow logically for you as you're arranging it, or is it almost like there's different parts that could be put in a different order, and it takes a while to decide what order to put them in?
Well, usually I just start at the beginning, and I'll write. In the case of that song, I'll write up into let's say a structure of a verse, let's say, or a section. And then I'll go, okay, it needs to go somewhere. Where I go, I don't know. And so then I just write something there. It's just basically just adding on. And so what ends up happening is it becomes more of a classical piece in structure and not typical pop structure.
Right.
And the thing is, I work with limitations or parameters in the rest of my life in terms of my work. We're working for movies, TV. You've got dialogue, you've got set amount of time. But for this music, I allow myself the freedom to do whatever I want. So some songs could be 4 minutes, some could be 8 or 9 or 10. But the longer ones are definitely just a piece at a time. So I wouldn't say they're modular in that I mess around with rearranging them, but I'll start at one place and then, okay, I landed on this chord, so do I repeat that section or do I go somewhere else completely different? And I just follow my muse. There's really not a whole lot of thought.
Okay, so it's pretty organic as it.
It's very organic, yeah.
Well, that's the best way, You don't want to think about it too much, or it'll sound like it.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever envision a movie to go with it? It's so soundtracky. Have you ever had one in your head that played along?
No. The thing that's different about, like I said, about this music for myself is I work. I'm repeating myself here, but I work with all these parameters, and this I clear my mind. It's almost a meditative state. So I have nothing in my mind, and I'm just playing my guitar or playing a keyboard, and I like that.
Okay.
I like that little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
little bits to it. And really, that's all it is. It's like building a wall or building a. I don't want to say build a wall. It's the wrong. I don't use that phrase.
Well, Pink Floyd already did it. You can't top that.
Yeah, but it's brick by brick kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's
so
great.
I don't have a concept.
But it was very almost a catharsis where it was very liberating to do exactly what you want, because you're in a business where it's made to order. It's like they tell you what they want and you fill the order more or less to their specifications. So I can imagine there's a part of you that's just dying to express yourself freely. So,
well, I also feel that the muse is smarter than I am. Like the things that will come to me, however you want to consider, whether it's a spiritual scenario or however, it's more smarter than my intellect. So I just let things happen organically and just let them flow. For this music, if I'm working on a pop song with someone, then no, it's like, okay, we've got a format here and we adhere to those formats.
Okay. Well, I was wondering if we could go back kind of to your beginnings as a musician and a music lover, and then kind of work our way through your career and talk about the different highlights, and then talk a bit about your sideman work with some of these amazing legends.
Sure.
Yeah. So what do you remember as being some of your favorite music you heard like very early in your life, before you could go buy a record or any of that? Was there any music you heard around the house that really caught your attention that you think about now, all these years later?
I'll give you a hint. Ed Sullivan.
Okay. She Loves You. Yeah, yeah.
There you go.
You don't look that old.
I am. The Beatles were everything to me, and still are.
Oh, yeah.
Beatles. So, yeah, the Beatles.
Very much ground zero for so many people. And a fountain of wonderful groups have been inspired, so. Yeah, and I think that's kind of a basic building block of musical DNA. And if people missed that, I urge them to go back and check it out.
Yeah.
Because it's just like there's so many, especially if you're a songwriter, there's so many lessons to be learned from every one of those songs. And, just to love them and absorb them helps a lot, because I think osmosis does a lot for musicians. I think it's not to be undervalued. But, once you start to learn some of them, and, Beatles songs are some of the first things people learn, there's so many things you learn about, parallel motion and counterpoint, all kinds of stuff,
Absolutely.
How about some others? Any other groups that were like your big favorites early on?
Pop music of the 60s and 70s. I loved all that stuff, the regular stuff that was on the radio, and that was the time when radio would play amazing music.
Oh yeah,
and Wichita Lineman, Glenn Campbell was a beautiful song. Just so much, such a wealth of harmony and expression and uniqueness coming out of the airwaves. But I liked the Beatles and Creedence Clearwater Revival and then later, as I got older, then I started getting into Jimi Hendrix, and to me that was like, oh, I didn't know the guitar could do that, because I started when I was around 9. But I was, my idea of a solo was solo to keep on shuggling or something. Right. But then I saw the movie Woodstock. And then so it was all this stuff at once. It was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it, because it was Pete Townsend and Alvin Lee,
Santana,
and Santana, and then mostly Hendrix though was like, oh, I had no idea that that's what could happen.
Oh yeah,
so that's what got me more into serious guitar playing and practicing. So I love that, and I also love that band Focus.
Oh sure, the amazing yodeling, but Jan Ackerman is a hell of a guitar player. Wow, he was really ahead of his time. I mean, by about 10 years. I mean, there's other guys that were ripping it up like that, but they were mostly kind of fusion cats like John McLaughlin, people in that ballpark. So I went from pop music on the radio then to Hendrix, and then blues players like Johnny Winter, and then you start go back like, well, who were they listening to? Then the Kings, the B.B. King, and particularly Albert King was the guy I really liked. Freddie.
And then the progressive rock started coming out, and then that I was really into Yes and Genesis, more so with Genesis than Yes.
Really?
But yeah,
How come, you think?
I don't know, just the music, just the writing of it. I just was something a little bit more.
How about the
Not
guitar?
that I did love Yes, I totally loved Yes, but Genesis I loved Peter Gabriel and just the I don't know what it is.
Well, you know,
maybe I had something more connection to the lyrics.
well, it's funny. When I was talking with Wakeman today, I noticed that, you know, Genesis is very keyboard based. You can tell Tony Banks started most of those compositions, and they have these really rich chord progressions and voicings that you don't get in Yes music, because Yes music is mostly written on the guitar, and Wakeman just kind of comes in and ices the cake after the fact. As a matter of fact, there were legal reasons he couldn't just bring a whole song to the band at the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is a drag. I mean, you know, like you know, at Fragile, how they each do a solo spot, and he did Cans and Brahms. You ever wonder why he didn't just write his own tune? Well, he did, but he couldn't use it, so he had to cover some, you know, thing.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
I never even considered that was a more guitar-based writing.
yeah, but I mean, it depends on the song. Something like Awaken, you know, is pretty keyboard-based. You know, later.
I mean, I had all those records too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And I love Steve Howe. Come on.
Oh yeah, man, he's just such a unique player. I mean, and of course he makes you want to own every kind of guitar and play them all, you know, lap steel and all that stuff. So and he's such an atypical player. You know, you wouldn't get any blues influence at all. He totally went a different route. And
lap steel in progressive rock music seems weird. You know,
definitely. But I love the way he plays it. You know, and you know, he's another guy I really love. It's like it's a short list of. You know, it's like slide guitar almost always has a blues inflection to it. That's kind of, they go hand in hand. And it's interesting to hear like somebody from England that didn't have that, you know, stuff seeping into their ears their whole life and go a completely different route with the slide, you know. George Harrison's George Harrison's probably my favorite slide player, you know. Just
my favorite slide player.
Yeah, I mean, wow. Just so.
Whatever his personality, his soul on that instrument, and that it's just so unique, and I love the way he plays melodies.
Oh yeah, man, and he can't resist a good diminished chord here and there too.
Oh yeah,
you know.
Yeah, nice melody.
Love that. So yeah, I always like that, the fact that they didn't have a blues influence, and it's kind of rare. And there might have been a little bit in there, but yeah. So okay, so you got to that. What's some of the first concerts you went and saw back in the day?
I saw 10 Years After when I was when I was 13 or something.
Oh wow, that must have been really impressive.
Yeah. What else? I saw ELO. Was one of the first concerts I saw. I saw The Who with Keith Moon.
Love The Who.
See early concerts. Jeff Beck.
Oh wow.
With Jan Hammer.
75-ish.
Genesis. I saw Genesis with with Bill Bruford. So that was the Trick of the Tail tour.
Right. Yeah, that was.
I saw that. I was still in high school for that.
Oh wow, that was an amazing tour. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I wish I'd seen the year before though.
Of course.
I didn't see the Lamb. That was supposed to be the one to have seen.
Yeah. Definitely.
But, I didn't see that.
Were you into King Crimson at all?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Sure. Did you ever have a chance to catch them, or were they a little harder to run across?
I never saw them. I ended up doing a little bit of playing with Adrian Belew though. It was a tribute to David Bowie, and a band was assembled, and different alumni from Bowie's band were assembled, and I was also another guitar player. So I got to spend a little time with Adrian. Have you ever interviewed him?
I haven't on this show since, I started doing this Zoom thing when COVID came along. Before that, I did it the old-fashioned way, where we talk on the phone and then we type it up and put it on a website. I like this better. It's almost like I didn't do a whole lot of them before because I just didn't like all the work that went into getting it on the website, So this is much more direct. It's like you just record it and upload it to YouTube and and it seems like people enjoy watching or listening to these. Podcasts are huge nowadays, and this basically is a podcast, so you can watch if you want to see some talking heads while you're doing, you know. So
you have all these archives so people can go back and
I
see.
do, yeah, and I'll send you a link if you want to check it out. And once I get it uploaded, I'll send you a nice edited copy with a nice logo and all that you can share. It'd be great if you could share it. I'd appreciate it, because I'm still kind of an upstart over there. I've done about 25 episodes with a really cool variety of people. So I'm hoping it'll set fire and, take off. Sometimes it just takes one video to go viral where everybody starts looking at your other ones and boom.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've definitely been inspired by guys like Rick Beato. You probably see.
Oh yeah, sure.
Play. He's here in Atlanta as well. Yeah, and there's a guy.
Boy,
huh? What's that?
His son is out of control with his ear.
Oh yeah, I know. And it's like he doesn't even want to make an album or have a band. And I'm like, dude, you could get so much attention now if you did. People are kind of dying to see you just do your thing.
I've always wondered, like, where's he going with this, with that talent?
I think he just feels like he's done all that already, and not really dying to do it now. I think he just loves doing his YouTube thing, and he's.
I'm talking about the boy.
Oh yeah, his son. I don't know. I mean, he could turn into the next Jacob Collier for all we know.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me. And there's another guy that inspired me, Rick Beato out of Nashville, or not Rick Beato. I'm sorry, Tom Bukovac.
Oh yeah.
I love his little COVID show that he's been doing. He's so laid back, and he's got great taste, and he loves prog too. He's, so it's like he's in Nashville, but he's sitting there talking about Fragile and playing Steve licks, So,
yeah, he's really good.
Yeah, and he mixes it up. So yeah, those are kind of my inspirations. It's like, well, I might as well reach out to some friends on here and see what they've been up to. So thank you for doing that. Definitely. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your musical trajectory. How did you? What was like your first major band that you had or were part of?
This band called Bourgeois Tagg, that's based out of Sacramento in the mid to late '80s. That was my first foray into the world of professional music.
And how did you make acquaintances with them?
Well, two of the guys in that band were in another group they were playing. They were in a band called Uncle Rainbow that played the circuit in San Jose. There was just a number of clubs, and they played these clubs frequently, and they were like the best band in the Bay Area, hands down. And I was in a 3-piece band, and we played the same clubs that they played. So you get to know all the people in the scene just from being locals.
Sure.
And so those two guys was Brent Bourgeois and Larry Tagg. They started their own band, Bourgeois Tagg, and then they'd seen me around town playing and asked me to join.
Okay. Well, I got to say, it's a great name, and you almost wouldn't guess that it's the guy's last names. Just, that's a really cool, title, so it's kind of convenient how it worked out like that.
Yeah.
And great 90s pop, kind of in the ballpark of Jellyfish. Did you feel like you were, kind of comrades, or were you even aware of them at the time?
Well, not at first, but yeah, we were kind of in our own scenario.
Kindred spirits, I guess I would say.
Well, Jellyfish to me, is more of an ode to a certain type of pop music and certain bands, Queen and the Beach Boys and more that kind of thing. Where Bourgeois Tagg was more, its roots were based more in funk music, and except for the single that we had, the biggest single was kind of a one-off.
And which one was that?
Well, I Don't Mind at All.
Oh yeah, okay.
The song I wrote it with Brent Bourgeois, but that wasn't really indicative of our the largest portion of our sound.
Yeah. And how many albums did you do with them?
We did 2.
And they were called.
It was produced by Todd Rundgren.
Yeah, I was.
That was the connection to Todd, because we finished the record with Todd, and Todd asked our band to be his backup band along with some other people, and that was ended up being Nearly Human.
How did you get Todd to produce for you originally? Do you remember?
Well, we had one record out, and it was just we were managed by Bill Graham, and Todd was also living in the Bay Area at the time in Northern California, and he was on the list. Todd was on the list because we loved skylarking, and we just loved Todd Rundgren. So I was like, well, let's see what he has to say about it. And we had a meeting with him, and that's what happened.
That's all. And I'm taking you were a big fan before all
Huge,
of that. Yeah,
huge fan. I was really excited about having Todd produce the record.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, I'm a big fan myself. You know, that first Utopia album really blew my mind.
Yeah.
And it just kind of went from there, you know. And, you know, it's like it was fusion, it was prog, but there was also some great pop melodies in there that really kind of paved the way for all of his other work that's more pop than progressive. So, you know, I just loved it all, you know.
Yeah, me too.
And I still love to go see him live. You know, he's just has so much energy, you know. And
yeah, great. I mean, I saw him. I saw that Utopia reunion tour. Was that maybe 2 years ago now?
Yeah. The one. What'd you think of that new keyboard player?
Great,
man.
Fantastic.
You know, I remember when it happened. I was like, I feel really bad for Ralph, and I hope he's going to be fine.
Yeah.
But out of this, we're going to run across a great new talent we weren't aware of.
Right.
And yeah, Gil was.
It was fantastic. Yeah, it was a great show.
And he just nailed all of those Roger Powell sounds. You know, he really, his attention to detail was amazing. And the fact that he learned that whole set in like a week, it was like,
yeah, wow. I can't believe that.
Well, yeah. So, and they've continued to work with him anyway, you know, since then. You know, he's been in Kaz's band. You know, Kaz has his own version of Utopia where he goes out and plays the songs he sang.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And they do a few Todd things. They do a really killer version of Verb to Love.
Right.
And some other things like that.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Check it out if you get a chance. There's some clips online. And it's cool to hear Kaz's side of things because he's sang and wrote a lot of great songs too.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so it's like a different evening that you get with Todd, but equally cool, I think. So,
yeah.
Okay, so you wound up being Todd's backup band, which must have been a dream come true.
It was.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about how Nearly Human came to be.
Well, he wanted to record a full band in the studio, so it's all live recording. And he asked us to be his band, and then, like I said, he'd have some background singers and maybe another keyboard player. Vince Welnick was there; he did some stuff, and then we did one song with Chasm and Willie. And well, let's see. Yeah, so other people were just kind of coming in, but we were kind of a core band, I would say. And then we toured that record, and then we did another record called Second Wind, which was recorded. It was filmed over 4 or 5 days at the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco, and with a mobile recording scenario. So it was essentially, we recreated a recording studio on the stage with dividers and things that you would have in a studio, and we're sitting down in chairs playing music, and we've got music stands, it's literally you're watching a recording session. And then you told people to be quiet and only applause when I give you a sign. And then that record was recorded digitally on a truck right outside of the venue. And then I ended up not going on that tour. I wanted to start working on my own project, and that record, Purple Passages, became that record.
Your first solo. Okay. Yeah. I noticed there's a bit of a lineup change on Second Wind. Ross Valerie's on bass. He in there? You know, Prairie Prince was the original drummer. Now, Prairie Prince wasn't part of this lineup, though. But I'm just kind of wondering how Ross got into the equation, the bass player for Journey. You know.
Well, I know. I think at that time, if I'm not mistaken, Larry Tagg was the bassist of Nearly Human, part of Bourgeois Tagg. I think Larry was touring with Tall and Oates.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what was going on at that time. So you needed another bass player. And I also believe that the drummer, Michael Urbana, who was also in Bourgeois Tagg and did the first record, Nearly Human, he was playing in, I forgot what other group he was in at the time. Was it in Smash Mouth? Maybe it was. I can't remember. So other people that had been playing with him were not available, so we outfitted it with some different people. So it was Prairie Prince on Second Wind.
I thought so, okay. Because, you know, he was the first drummer for Journey, so him and Ross go way back. So I thought maybe.
A little bit of trivia. Prairie Prince has done the artwork to my last 3 records.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome artwork, dude.
Yeah.
Is it like by hand or on a computer or what?
No, it's all. He's every bit of an artist as he is as a drummer.
Wow. Have you got them like framed, hanging on the wall in your house?
Yeah, I got one in my studio here.
Yeah, I would definitely do that because they're awesome. Very cool. I would not have guessed that. Yeah, I love that track Second Wind. I think that's kind of a tip of the hat to kind of his 70s progressive kind of style.
It's a really adventurous record. I think that record is outstanding. There's some beautiful songs that were written for that. I think it was a play about Joe Orton, I think is what it was. Up Against It was the play. So
yeah.
The material written for that play. Musical, beautiful songs. If I Have to Be Alone was an amazing track on that record.
Oh, man, yeah.
Yeah, just it was a great. I just loved playing his music and being part of that band.
I could imagine. Do you have a preference of the 2 records? Which one you prefer? Or I'm sure you love them both.
I think sonically, I like Nearly Human a little bit more. I think it's a little warmer sounding.
Mm-hmm.
I love them both. I really do.
Any standout tracks that are some of your favorites?
That song on Nearly Human, Waiting Game?
Oh, yeah.
I really love that song. And Todd told me that he dreamed that song. So when he told me that, so, okay, so you wake up and would you have like the first part of it? He goes, no, this is the whole song. I went, what? He said, yeah, the whole song was like formed in a dream. So he just had to basically just record it on whatever he had at the time, at some sort of tape recorder.
Wow.
What about all the harmonies and all the vocals? Yeah, it just came to me.
Man,
I remember one time I asked him, we were on tour, I said, Todd, have you ever been in a situation where you had any kind of writer's block, like you're working on a song and you need to get to a new section and you just can't seem to find the right chord or the right way to get into another section, or with lyrics or with anything where it just made you pause and have to take a break and take a walk or anything, and he thought about it for about 10 seconds and went, no.
I guess it's just
he just really has this direct communication to the muse, it just pours down on him.
And that's great that he can get it out uninterrupted. Just going from a dream to reality, you think it would almost get a little cloudy for some folks. So
if you listen to that song, there's all these crazy cascading harmonies and stuff, and it's a beautiful song. I used to love playing that song live.
I'd say those 2 albums were a career peak for him, and I dare say you guys are one of the tightest bands he ever had.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Did you see that band live?
No, but I've got the DVD of the show in Japan, and
right.
legendary. Do you remember much about filming that over there?
I remember. I do remember, but the other thing I remember is not so pleasant, as I got some terrible flu.
Oh,
and so I was sick for definitely 3 or 4 days while we were in Japan. And I remember doing one or two of the shows just in fever and all that stuff. It was terrible, but not the show that they filmed. I think I was okay.
Yeah.
That was probably after I got better or before. I can't remember.
Do you find the adrenaline kind of pulls you through in a situation like that? Like
yeah.
Hit the stage, the kind of illness is kind of in the backseat almost.
It's a whole other state. You're in another sort of reality.
Yeah, well, there's
a lot of concentration to play that music. There's a lot.
Oh yeah.
Between all the vocals, I mean, we get 11 people in the band, and everyone's singing except one guy.
How did you decide how to break up the guitar parts? Because I know some songs it looks like Todd's playing, and other ones you're doing everything.
He would just say, Todd would say, "You take the solo on this one." Like a song like "Can't Stop Running," and you take it.
Sure.
And on whatever other song.
Yeah. Well, that's a fantastic band, fantastic DVD. So if y'all haven't seen that, you're missing out. Check it out. It's on YouTube too, but buy it. It's better that way. I have a couple of questions. We got a lot of folks in chat tonight. I want to say hi to everybody. mutual friend of ours, Dwayne Bailey, has some questions.
Oh, right on.
Fantastic guitar player from Chicago.
Yeah.
Dwayne wants to know, would you ask Lyle who first inspired him to work with orchestras, and if he first discovered Kevin Gilbert with his band Giraffe, or was it after Toy Matinee since Lyle played on Gilbert's Thud album?
Well, the first part of the question, it's hearing Beatles, George Martin's orchestrations. That was seeping in there in my DNA. Beatles orchestrations, and then as I started to get more into progressive rock and all that, well, if it was an orchestra, it's keyboards that are supposed to be like vocal choirs or strings. So I would say Electric Light Orchestra had a really nice blend of orchestra and pop music and writing, and then also the John McLaughlin records with the London Philharmonic.
Yeah, Apocalypse. Yeah.
Or with Michael Tilson Thomas, the Apocalypse and the Visions of Emerald. I really love those records.
Oh, I do too. I feel
Great.
that's as good as the first two Mahavishnu albums in a different way.
Yeah.
A little more refined.
Really
but compositionally, it's right up there.
I agree.
Yeah, love those.
And then Kevin Gilbert. I'm from San Jose. Kevin's from Sunnyvale, so neighboring towns. We're from the same area.
Yeah.
A lot of mutual friends. And I started hearing about this young kid. And we met through some mutual acquaintance. So I knew about Giraffe. And that was a great band. And Kevin Gilbert, wow, what an amazingly gifted guy.
Really, definitely. I'm actually planning a show where we look back on his music and
that's great.
Plays with. So
yeah.
So I haven't quite.
I just met at some gig or something, and he just said, "I'm working on a record. You want to play on it?" And then that's how that went down.
Okay. And so was that the Thud that you played on, or did you know him previous to that?
Oh yeah, years before that.
Yeah.
I was playing with Giraffe.
For the uninitiated, how would you describe him as an artist, and what was his big strengths? I mean, he was a multi-instrumentalist for starters.
Yeah, he was a hell of a piano player and also a really good guitar player and a great lyricist and a great singer.
Yeah.
He kind of had it all. But yeah, I think we grew up liking the same kind of stuff, the progressive stuff and the pop and the Beatles.
Oh, yeah. Well, he went on and covered The Lamb at Prague Day.
Oh, yeah. How good is that? I had a VHS tape of that I got from the keyboard player, Dave Kersner, who was playing.
Oh, yeah. Dave's friend. I had him on a few weeks ago, actually.
Right on, yeah.
Yeah, small world.
I got a tape of that, so I geeked out on that. I thought it was so, and it mixed by Bill Purtrell.
Oh yeah,
great engineer producer.
Absolutely. What did you think of Toy Matinee when you first heard it?
Oh, I thought it was very cool.
Yeah. One of the greatest '90s pop albums, easily. And
another friend of mine I have a couple of friends. Stan Cody's a really talented musician. Was in that band and. Works for Fender now, but guitar player, keyboard player, writer.
Okay. Dwayne's got another question. Was Bourgeois Tagg aware of the band Giraffe when they played gigs, or did they play together? And did Lyle work with Mark Bonilla when they both lived in San Jose?
Well, Bourgeois Tagg was based in Sacramento.
Okay, so up north.
Brett and Larry, and I think Uncle Rainbow, they may have lived in an apartment or something, because I think they were based in the Bay Area at some. But I don't think at that point, it's kind of a bit of a different circle, and I think we're maybe a little bit before.
Okay.
Before Giraffe started playing gigs, I'm not sure about that, but yeah, we weren't quite in a clique with the Giraffe people.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask about
knowing Kevin because of my proximity and some mutual friends.
Okay.
But Bourgeois Tagg, they were based in Sacramento.
Okay, so up the coast a bit.
They were in Uncle Rainbow, living in Bay Area, and then they relocated to Sacramento.
Okay, I get it. Jellyfish, Spilt Milk, one of the most amazing '90s pop albums ever. I'm curious how you got involved. I had Roger on one of my first episodes. Roger Manning, loved that guy. He's just such a talent. And have you heard the new stuff with the Licorice Quartet?
I have. It's great.
Yeah.
What a treat.
I know. I'm so glad to see them back together. And, I just tell everybody I can about that album or EP. They're doing a cool way. They're doing 3 EPs over the course of like a year and a half. So
Yeah.
instead of giving you one album and disappearing for 3 years, they're going to dole it out in, 6-month chunks. And I think
I think that works well for today's times.
Yeah, I think it really does. So, really have enjoyed that. And, a lot of the Jellyfish DNA is in there. I mean, it's different,
Absolutely.
but that
100%.
same standard of excellence when it comes to arranging and writing and amazing vintage sounds,
Yep.
great harmonies. It's all there, definitely. So, I was curious how you came to be on that album. Do you know Jason Faulkner? I'm guessing you
I
probably
only
do.
met him through Jellyfish.
Uh-huh.
And then through Beck, because he was working with Beck for a while. Or maybe presumably still is.
Yeah, he is. I think so.
For a few years as well. But, Roger Manning and Andy Sturmer were in a band called Beatnik Beach. And they opened up for Bourgeois Tagg once. So we were both Bay Area bands. Now, I didn't know this. I didn't know about Jellyfish. I was a little bit aware of Beatnik Beach, but they were different. They were a different band altogether.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I heard the first Jellyfish record, and my thought was, who is this great new band from England?
Right.
I really thought they were an English band. And then not only were they not English band, but they were in my backyard, essentially, relatively speaking. And so I knew, I believe I reached out to Roger and just said, I offered my services. I said, I love your band. If you ever need a guitar player, I would love to be involved. That was it. And they asked me to be involved in Spilt Milk.
Okay. And so I guess Jason was out of the picture by then. And are you pretty much on every track? Isn't there another guitar player on there as well that does some stuff?
John Bryan.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay.
Yeah. It's about 50-50.
Okay.
It's like mostly me or mostly John. There's some stuff that he played on, mostly that I have a part or two. But but most of it is just completely one guy or another.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that very Harrison-esque slide solo on New Mistake.
Oh, yeah. That's me. Yeah, that's all me on that track.
Yeah. Is that like double tracked or?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. It has this kind of huge sound to it. Now, have
you heard thing about that song is that they were recording with a I think it was called a Porta Studio, the cassettes.
Oh, right, yeah. I used to have one of those.
Cassette tapes. And it was one of those, I believe one of the 8-track. Think about that, 8-track on a tape. That's that thin.
Right, that's like a sliver for each track, basically. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and with the amount of instrumentation and vocals, they would do the bounce thing. You would record on 6 channels and bounce it down to channel 7 and 8, and go back and forth, kind of the way the Beatles would have to do, except with they would do it with different tape machines. But there's a part, the very beginning of the New Mistake solo got cut off in the process of Roger or Andy doing a bounce. And I still remember the line that got cut off.
Yeah, I've always wondered what that was. Can you hum it or anything?
Yeah. Na 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 da 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 da. So it's that got cut off, but I've always remembered that, and that was what 90. Because I did all the demos with them, all of those. So that had to be around 1990 or something.
Yeah, I'd say right at
that line that got cut off.
Well, that's great. That's an interesting archaeological find to hear that from you. I've heard the story, and I always sort of wondered, just exactly what was missing. And the funny thing is, the producer's like, "Don't worry about it. The way it comes in here is perfect. It'll be a surprise when it arrives."
That's how it was. Once they finished the song, it was with the part that was cut off. So the producers, the guys in Albie Galutin and Joseph Puig, they never knew it any other way.
Okay.
The chord, there's a modulation, and there's just a bar going to this new chord with no solo. So it sounded weird to me at first, but then I got used to it. But I remember what that line was.
Well, that's awesome. I always wondered. But it's interesting. There was a mistake with New Mistake.
That's right.
The fabled mistake.
Exactly.
Any other tracks stick out in your mind now that you really love from that one, or?
Well, the ones I played on, Glad and Sympathy is I think that's all me as well. Just a beautiful song. Oh, I remember what's interesting about that song. I remember is that so at this time it was Roger and Andy, and they were it was Andy's house, Andy and his girlfriend's house in Cotati, up north in the Bay Area. It was just some gear in a bedroom, Porta studio and a couple of microphones and a keyboard, not much. And we were working on that song, and Andy was just not happy with the ending of the song, the way the song ends. And he just, because I got to take a break, and so he walks outside and goes in the backyard. And so Roger and I just went to the kitchen, got a glass of water or something. And Andy's just pacing back and forth in the back lawn, in the backyard for, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes. And he walks in and goes, I got it. And then laid something down. And that is like the best dismount of a song I think I've ever heard, one of the best. That's the way that song ends. That little tag at the very end is so gorgeous what he did. But yeah, they're just talented guys, man. Can I say?
Yeah. Now I'm wondering, did they offer you the guitar spot? Because I noticed next they got Eric Dover and they went on tour, but I'm wondering, did you almost do that?
No, it's never offered to me. I think they really needed a slam dunk singer for one thing.
Oh, he's a heck of a singer.
He's a killer singer.
Yeah, all that high stuff on the Licorice Quartet is like choirs of just him.
He's great. He's a great singer.
And he said he can do that in any key. It doesn't matter. So.
Yeah, I think they wanted a singer, a guy that could really play and they could play and really sing.
Okay, well that makes sense.
I'm good at being a background singer, but I'm not.
Well, that was an interesting what if. That was the first question that came to my mind. It's like, well, Lyle was there anyway.
They couldn't afford me.
So where does that slot in for you? Is that after Bourgeois, or was it kind of during, or?
Yeah, that was while I was playing with Todd, I guess. Yeah, right around the time I was playing with Todd. Okay.
Well, I'm sure they loved having somebody playing with Todd on their record too, because I know those guys love Todd too. Who doesn't? Dwayne's got another question. He says, since Lyle toured with Beck, has he ever worked with Beck's dad, David Campbell, since they both do movie soundtrack work and orchestral work?
Not in movie stuff. I haven't worked with David Campbell. Okay. But of course I know him and he's great. It's amazing. But I've not worked with him in the film world.
Okay.
They work with guys that are a little bit more. They spend more of their careers is in films, whereas David Campbell's more so in the world of pop music, as far as I know. Okay. I don't really know. I'm not really aware of David Campbell's work in films. I need to look that up.
All righty. So what was next for you after Todd?
Well, Todd and
Jellyfish. Working on your solo album and
working on another solo record, and then I did a tour with a guy named Jude Cole, a pop songwriter.
I know that name,
and that was great. That was really fun, and got to be close friends with the drummer Toss Panos, who's on my record.
Oh yeah, he played on my friend Mike Keneally's albums.
Yeah, I did a lot of work with Keneally, and he's played with like the guitar players. He's played with Schofield and Robin Ford and Larry Carlton, and he's a great drummer.
Yeah, he's amazing. Absolutely.
And then I played with Frank Black for about 5 years.
Yeah, from the Pixies. Yeah, that's kind of a different wheelhouse, somewhat. How did that come?
It was pretty wild because I went from Todd, in Jellyfish, to people stage diving and moshing. That kind of scared me at first. I remember the first gig, I was like, oh my gosh.
Right.
What's going on? But that was really fun. I really loved his music, and I got to sort of get my freak on within the context of his music, which was really fun.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah. And what albums were you on with him?
First one was called Teenager of the Year. Another one's called Cult of Ray. Another one's called Frank Black and the Catholics. And one called Oddballs.
Did you play a variety of Pixies tunes also with them, or just?
No, we didn't.
No?
At the very end, we started to play maybe one or two Pixies songs, but it was all new material.
Oh, okay, very cool. Well, I saw that on your resume, and I'm like, that's a little different. That's really cool.
I really liked his music because there's oddly progressive moments, but not coming from that world at all. He just has this interesting filter, like he'll do odd meter stuff, but not really know. I'll go, hey, you do this, you do this. You never notice because no, I don't know what you're talking about. Not that he knows, he's aware of music, but it's not from it doesn't come from that place. It comes from some other place.
Yeah. Well, that's always good, and I kind of like it when people that are not trained like that come up with these things. It's very organic and, just surprised. I was chatting with my friend Vaylor Trucks a few weeks ago. His dad was the drummer with the Allman Brothers. And we were talking about how they occasionally had odd meters, like on whipping posts. And,
Is that Derek
what's that?
Was that Derek Truck's dad? Or?
No, actually he's a nephew.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, the drummer from Allman Brothers, this was his son, Vaylor. And then his brother's kid is Derek.
Oh, okay.
So very close.
What a talented guy that guy is, man.
Oh, he is. I mean, and the acorn doesn't fall far from the tree in that family. I mean, they're all amazingly. Vaylor's not, as well known, but he's very much kind of the progressive fusion guy in the family,
Really?
One of his favorite guitar players is Ralph Towner,
sure.
Oregon.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where he's coming from. He's a very unique stylist. And yeah, we were talking about, I said, occasionally there's some odd meters and, whipping posts. And he's like, well, it wasn't premeditated. It's just like to drop a beat occasionally. And it would wind up that way, but no big plan or anything at all.
Yeah, sure.
So that was interesting. Okay. And then what did you do after Frank?
Well, nothing I was doing when I was at that point, I was living in Los Angeles. I moved from the Bay Area. So I started doing session work. So including working on with some other composers for their movies. Mm-hmm. And I guess the next biggie would be Beck, touring with Beck for about 2.5 years.
Midnight Vultures, around there?
Midnight Vultures, yeah, it was that record.
Okay, were you on the record too, or did you just tour?
No, I just did the tour, yeah.
Are you on any of his records, or did you just tour?
I just did a tour. I think I played on some song that was on some other compilation record.
Was Roger Manning in the band at the time?
That's why I got in, was through Roger.
Okay. Yeah, I imagine that's how Jason got in there later as well.
Yeah, I believe so.
It's like, I know some amazing guitar players. I'll call them. So, yeah, very cool. And what appealed to you about his music?
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, he's so eclectic, and it's hard to put your finger on exactly.
He's just a true artist, man, in every aspect of the word. If there's a particular genre that he's doing, let's say, like in the case of Mutations, or it's more acoustic, he just has his own. He has his own very creative spin on it. And if it's Midnight Vultures, was just kind of like this electronic funk blend, it's same thing. He just has this really strong sense of his creative self that's always very uniquely him.
Okay.
So great to be a part of that. And he's also very, he really is a person that believes in the devil's in the details. Just every little aspect of what you play and how you play it and the sound that you get is absolutely crucial. And so he's very, very in depth when he works with musicians about how he wants things to sound and how he wants them to be played. That's what makes him so great.
Oh yeah. Well, Jellyfish is another one where, they're.
Oh yeah. Same thing.
Yeah. And those records are so rewarding on repeat listens because of that attention to detail.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much ear candy and layers where I didn't notice that. I've listened to this album 10 times and I just now noticed that, you know.
Yeah.
I love
Right.
that, you know. I just, you know, I can think of other artists that did similar. Steely Dan, you know.
Yeah. They're stickler for details of the utmost.
Oh yeah, they'll polish that song for 6 months, you know, and make 20 versions of it. You know, they're notorious, of course. So after that, it was this around the time you hooked up with Sting.
No, that was a little bit later. That was right. That coincided with a movie I was working on. My first major movie was 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Okay, yeah, that was a
Thing came together right as it was finishing the movie. That opportunity came to be.
Okay, and
I was brought in through Josh Freese, Sting's drummer.
So was it like a guitar lineup with Dominic?
Yeah, it was 2 guitars, bass, and drums.
Okay, and am I right that you toured with him, but you didn't really play on an album until many years later, the most recent one?
That's exactly right.
57th and what?
And 9th, I think.
9th, yeah. Okay.
9th or 57th and is it 8th?
Yeah.
There's 3 numbers involved, all I know.
Yeah, it's an intersection in New York somewhere.
Yeah.
Was there any talk of you going on that tour as well, or?
Yeah, I think around that time, my film career was for me to go and commit to touring.
You kind of tied down.
I sort of could. Yeah, I had began a new career where I could stay home and see my son every day and my wife, and I really liked that. So it just was better for me to do that at that point in my life.
Sure.
But we did a nice long tour in 2006, all summer long, and then I did some dates with him over subsequent years, you know, spot dates here and there.
And what's it like working with him? Is he pretty buttoned up, or?
It's great. I mean, he's very. The first thing he told me is this is not a Police cover band. You just play what you want to play. You know, if I want you to play something else, I'll let you know. But of course, what am I not going to play the arpeggio and Every Breath You Take? You know, you got to play it. But,
right.
You know, and all that Andy Summers stuff I thought was so perfect. I didn't want to reinvent it. You know, so I would pretty much just stay to the facts of what I thought the song should be, and then we would try to mess around with things every now and again. But it was very, very respectful of musicians. I really enjoyed playing with him and with those group of people. Is
that when you first met Vinny?
No, I met Vinny on some sessions here in Los Angeles beforehand.
Okay. I've noticed that he's been on not just this new album, but he's been on some of your other albums as well. Am I right?
No, wait a minute. No, I don't think he's on my records before. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's on he's on the last one. I forgot. Okay. Yeah, he's on the last one. Yeah, he's just. What can you say about Vinny Colaiuta, man?
If I had to pick a favorite drummer, it might be him, because he's just so kinetic. You know,
Now, with Vinny, it's like he's on two or 3 songs. He's on 2 songs on my record, and I knew that they were long, extensive pieces, and I knew that he would just instinctively play everything I would want him to play, and he did. I didn't have to say anything, and these were complicated tracks with multiple meters and tempo changes and things like that, and areas for blowing.
Yeah, the kind of stabby da-da.
Yeah.
Like, just let him rip it up.
He was great. I was like, well, I guess we should get another take. Safety. It's all about the casting, getting the right people that sort of play the way they play naturally. You just go for those people.
You know, a guy that you kind of remind me a bit of career-wise is Trevor Raven.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know, you both were, you know, rock guitar guys, but what got into, you know, scoring in films. You know, he started hanging out with Jerry Bruckheimer, I believe. But I think his first lesson, he went to give Steven Seagal a guitar lesson. And he's like, I'm making this movie called The Glimmer Man. You want to do the soundtrack? And he's like, sure. And that's how he got into it. And
wow.
The next 20 years, you know, Armageddon, and National Treasure, and all those biggies.
All right. Yeah.
So yeah, and also he had Vinny play on his album as well. He did
makes sense.
Instrumental album called Jacaranda a few years ago. That's excellent.
I haven't heard that.
Check it out, Lyle. You will love it. It's got Vinny on a couple tracks on, and it's more progressive than anything Yes has touched in 25 years. Like, why didn't you bring him this stuff? I mean, I love the music he did with them, but it was more streamlined, for a pop era. But it's like, this guy could write some great progressive fusion too, so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I
certainly breathed new life into Yes when he joined.
Yeah. What did you think about that at the time?
I thought it was amazing.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I was at the Guitar Center checking out some amp, and they always played the pop music on the radio way too loud. But that song came on. I was like, what's this? I go, wow, that's that John Anderson. And then all that crazy Trevor Horn sample stuff, with the orchestra hits and all that.
Right.
And that guitar solo comes in on Owner of a Lonely Heart. I was like, wait, that's not Steve Howe. I thought it was great. I thought it was fantastic. I loved it.
Before I was even a guitar player, I was really into bass players, and Chris was like my favorite. And it's just like, well, Steve Howe's gone, but Chris is still there, so I'm down for this. And I was a little skeptical. I mean, I liked it, but I was kind of a 70s Yes guy until I went and saw the 90125 tour, and I was sold. That was the first time I saw them because I wasn't old enough to see them in the 70s, and my parents weren't going to drive me to Kansas City when I'm 8. So I had to wait till I was like 16.
I did again. I saw the Relayer tour.
Oh wow!
That was Patrick Moraz. Yeah, that was great.
I think that was their kind of answer to Mahavishnu. I think they toured with Mahavishnu, and at one time, and he
opening, or who was Mahavishnu opening for them? No, Mahavishnu would open for them, right?
I would think so at that point. Yeah,
I wouldn't want to be in any band following the Mahavishnu orchestra.
It's funny. And it happened before. It's like when John Anderson saw King Crimson, for that first, lineup, it's like, Chris, we got to practice more. and then they saw Mahavishnu. It's like, Chris, we got to practice more. So Relayer was a bit of an answer to that. And I think that's kind of the last album where they really pushed the envelope, After that, it was a bit of a retreat to more familiar waters, but Going for the One's a beautiful album.
I think and also what you just said, that really touches on a lot. We got to practice more. What was going on at the time with these other bands that they're mates of theirs or they were in the scene. You had to up your game, man, or else you just weren't gonna be up to stuff.
You're gonna be blown in the weeds.
Time. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me take a peek. I think I have some more questions here.
Dwayne Bailey asks.
Yeah. What else?
Hey, Dwayne, how you doing, bud?
Let's see here. After Lyle's new solo album is released, would he consider doing any live shows, or is it too hard to make that call because COVID-19 stopping most bands from touring and playing live gigs? Uncommon Measures needs to get to #1 with a ton of promotion.
Thank you. That record, this record will be a little bit of an anomaly, or a little bit more challenging to pull off live because it's so much of it is built on orchestra. I'm really not sure how to. It would have to be a reduction of that and done on keyboards. I don't know. And playing the tapes, I'm not sure that would work. Mm-hmm. I really didn't think that through when I wrote the music, but there's also just having the funds to put a band together. The thing is, I'm comfortable now staying at home making music for films and TV. So the idea of getting in a van and playing small clubs, I don't know. There would have to be a scenario that would make sense for me to go do that.
Sure.
But it would be great to do that because it would be I think very fulfilling to perform this music live.
Oh yeah, it'd be stunning to see it.
Thanks for that answer, by the way. I appreciate for that question.
All right. Jim Brown is in the chat room. He says, is there a guitar synth solo in Diamond Cutter, or is that a keyboard?
Wow, okay. It's a guitar synth. Yes, it is. It's the GR300. It's that big blue Roland guitar synth.
Like the early 80s one that Matheny uses?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
And it was all over King Crimson's Discipline in those 80s.
That's right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Those are like the two people I could really point to that used it well. Yeah. In the wrong hands, it could be a little cheesy, but those guys made it sublime. Pat in particular. I mean, that became his sound.
Yeah.
And he still uses it to this day.
It never failed. I never failed to get something out of it. In the case of the song that was mentioned, that Jim mentioned, I probably hadn't plugged it in 10 years, and I want to do something different, and I plugged it in, and sure enough, I dialed up a sound, and it was great. It was because normally I just play keyboards if I want something keyboardy, but it's really not keyboards. It's something else.
Yeah, and it makes you phrase differently, so it takes you new places. Did you have the guitar, the brown kind of SG looking one that everybody used?
No, it's the Strat model.
Oh, okay.
It's the one. It's bought it 1982 or whatever it was.
Right. Do you still have it?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I've managed to keep a few things like that, thankfully.
Yeah. Derek Young says, I remember Lyle playing in my neighbor's house behind mine with my friend Gregory Perry and saying, this guy's going places. All were talented, but Lyle was just driven even more so. Just amazed and so happy for your success.
Oh, thanks, Eric. That's very nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on, Lyle, do an orchestral tour.
I would love to.
Yeah.
Need to get maybe I can get some financing from some European orchestra and go over there and do some live filming or something.
Yeah, have you seen that one out of Iceland that has been doing some stuff with John Anderson?
I have not. No.
Wow, there's a version of Awaken that he did in the last few years that with the orchestra, and it's stunning. That song really lent itself well to an orchestral reimagining. So yeah, check.
Well, I know that Metropole has done a lot of stuff.
I love that.
Together great with the Michael Keneally and
the Todd stuff with them, right?
And the Todd stuff, yeah, that's right.
Oh, man, and that was one where Todd just like put the set list together. I'll play whatever. And it's like, wow, he was doing onomatopoeia. He had every word written on 2 white gloves, and he was like, splack, splink, blink, 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 dribble, dribble.
That's right, yeah.
Boom, bang, flat.
Initially I was going to use that orchestra, but due to the complexity of the music, I just felt that, and also with the advice of my orchestrator who works with Abbey Road, he lives in between Air Studio and Abbey Road. Okay. And so he works with these musicians, and they're basically the best, between London and Los Angeles. That's probably the 2 best orchestras.
And basically, you had a day, so you wanted the best.
And I had a day, so I couldn't.
To nail it.
With Metropole, it was suggested that we have 2 or 3 days to rehearse. I'm like, huh? No, I don't really have the funds for that. And I realized I just need to go with the best. And I'm so glad I did.
Okay. Angelo Bunini says, tell Lyle I can hook him up with the Iceland Orchestra. We played with them a year ago with Rundgren.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. So, I'd say Metropole and them are 2 really kind of cutting edge ones that are.
Yeah, I don't have much awareness on that orchestra, but yeah, now that you brought that to my attention, I got to check it out.
Yeah, very good stuff. So tell us a little bit more about. You got into studio work. Did the scoring for the movies kind of happen at the same time, or did that come a little later?
It came a little bit later. One of the sessions. Well, it's really a lot of baby steps. Like I met this guy, and then I met that guy, and then met that, and through a number of sessions, I ended up working with a composer whose wife was an executive at Universal, and this executive, her associate was the vice president of music at Universal, and he wanted some guitar to be on some guitar for a personal project. So I ended up in this this music executive ended up in my studio, and I played guitar in his project, and I made a CD for him to take away, which had some music I'd written for commercials, because one of the things I was doing when I moved to LA, I was working for a house that did commercials. Mm-hmm. And I started as a session musician, but they knew I wrote songs and stuff being in Bourgeois Tagg. They said, why don't you take a crack at this Reebok ad or this Nike ad? And so I started getting some of those. So that's my first entry into writing for Pitcher. So I had some of that material, but I also did a session with a band. And one of the band guys was good friends with Jon Favreau and Vince Vaughn. They asked their buddy to score their film, and this musician in turn asked me to help them co-score it. And so that was the first movie I did. It was called Made.
Okay.
So everything kind of started happening. So I got a little bit more experience as time was going along.
Okay.
And then the music for that movie Made and some of my commercial material were on the CD that I gave to the music executive. He liked what he heard and called me back. So there's a movie that we're putting out, and we need some miscellaneous rock music in a series of scenes. So I wrote the music and submitted it. Actually, I wrote some with a friend of mine. I brought him in. We both did it, and it ended up in the movie, and one of the producers was Judd Apatow. So shortly after, Judd signed a deal with Universal, and my name was brought up through this executive. Well, let's give Lyle a shot. Just send him a couple scenes, and I wrote some music to it, and that's how I got the gig.
Okay.
So the movie came out. It was #1 for a couple weeks in a row. So then I sort of cut in the front of the class, so to speak, for not really having much experience. And that started my career. And then the movie after that was Superbad, which was also a #1 hit.
Yeah, well, tell us a bit about that one. That has that wonderful funk soundtrack with Bernie Worrell and Bootsy Collins. I mean, how you can get any funkier than that? And am I right that it was kind of like the director had chosen some classic funk tunes and threw them under the scenes, and they're like, write something in this vein. We don't want to use these songs. We want to have you do originals. Was it kind of like that?
Yeah, they had the music that was temped in the scenes was of that ilk, was Parliament and James Brown and all that stuff. And so that they knew from the get-go that was the musical template.
Okay.
So that I knew that was kind of a no-brainer, but then my thought was, well, do we have the money to actually hire some of these musicians that made that music? Mm-hmm. That were the pioneers of it, and that's what ended up happening. So we had Bernie Worrell and Bootsy Collins and his brother Catfish Collins on additional guitar, and the two James Brown drummers, Clyde Stubblefield and Jabbo Starks, and then I had also additional keyboards through Jeff Babco. There's a great keyboard player that I work with a lot here in LA. And we recorded at Capitol Records over 4 or 5 days, and that ended up being the score for Superbad.
What are your favorite studios to record in?
Well, I sure love Capitol just because of the history.
Oh, yeah.
Capitol, what used to be called, I think now it's called United Western, but it used to be called Cello, and then it became East West. But that's where they did Pet Sounds.
Right, yeah.
Frank Sinatra records there. That's a great place. Henson, which used to be A&M. It's another great studio to work in. It's just, there's so much history and recording studios down here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That was really a treat. Just any time going into the Capitol Records to work on a project or record. We did some Michael Bublé records there with full orchestra, all live. That was really something else. Just every time you walk through those halls and the pictures on the wall, and you just go, man, this is. You think about that stuff as a young musician, and to finally get there and be making records in those buildings is really something else.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah. Walk us through kind of a brief rundown of what you need to do to score a film. I know there's so much to explain, but
brief rundown. Well, you have to be a versatile musician, and you have to be an adept at least one instrument. You know what I mean? Because you got to, you could be, if you know how to do one thing and you're good at it, that might get you one film, but it's not going to give you a career. So you've got to have some versatility in your musicianship, and that pretty much has been my whole career. Just playing, to be playing with Frank Black, and then playing on Michael Bublé records or with Sting. I mean, you have to have some sort of a depth as a musician, some versatility.
Sure.
So you need to have that. You don't necessarily have to know how to read and write music, but it certainly helps. I studied music, so I know how to do that. And just sensitivity as a musician. And you just have to be at the right place at the right time and have some success. You could be good at something, but without a successful job, it's really hard to get work.
Did they send you like a rough of it, and then you work in things kind of like a demo almost, and then they go, oh, I like this, or I don't like this, try something else, and just kind of keep tweaking it until everything's in place, and then you go in and you really record it legitimately.
Well, it depends on the type of music. If it's an orchestral-based score, everything's done with keyboards, and at the end, because you don't want to be recording before everything is set in stone.
Sure.
The last thing you do is record the orchestra and mix it. But if it's not an orchestral score, it's electronic. If it's guitars, bass, and keyboards, things you do in a computer, you can sort of write finalized music as you're going along.
Okay.
You might, you want to get a tweak and a nice mix at the end of it, with a good 5.1 film mixer.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. Do you have any more soundtracks coming up?
Well, not right now. I mean, I have a TV show that's happening. That's happening the beginning of next year. But we didn't do it. It was the second season, and we didn't do a soundtrack up. Do you mean soundtracks in terms of something that people can buy, or just a job?
Well, both, I guess.
Yeah.
How about the difference between scoring for TV versus movies?
With TVs, it's episodical. Is that the right word? It's episodes, right? So
episodical. Yeah.
You're doing little movies, so you've got deadlines. You've got a series of deadlines, which is nice. You can with a movie you could write the first, let's say, minute of music that starts the beginning of the movie, but at the very end of it, 3 months later, you can say, hey, what about that first scene? Maybe we should relook at that, and then you could possibly revisit that, which is not a bad thing. I mean, that's actually kind of a good thing, having that much time. But you don't have that with TV. Usually you have, if it's a schedule where you're sort of chasing the airings, then you have to be done at a certain time. So you've got 2 weeks to do one show, another 2 weeks to do the next show, on and on. So there's more deadlines in that way, which could be good and which could be bad too, just depending.
Okay. I got another one here for you. Douglas Kennedy says, hey guys, really great interview. Question. Did Todd have Lyle record any unusual guitar sounds or do anything unconventional when recording the Yo-Yo record?
Yeah.
Also, can Lyle recommend any of his favorite orchestral records, soundtrack or otherwise, composers or pieces? So I guess it's a two-part question.
Yeah, there's on Yo-Yo, there's a song called, Stress. The name of the song is called Stress. And Todd connected my amp up to some kind of vocoder.
Okay.
I don't really know exactly what he was doing. So there's a really weird guitar sound in the solo. And I don't know if he had a pipe with a tube or something, or he was playing. I don't remember. But yeah, we did an unusual. That was the most unusual thing on that record. That was Todd's idea.
Okay. Well, he's he's been known to pop wheelies on motorcycles when recording. So anything goes.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the bat out of hell.
Totally.
Yeah,
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, or what was it? Was they recording a motorcycle or something?
Well, it's all guitar. Yeah, and
no, that's right. That's right.
it sounds like a motorcycle, and then they're like, make it pop a wheelie at the end, and he like.
That's right.
Did that, and I heard it was all one take, and then it goes right into some other melodic part, and it
very effective.
Yeah, just kind of kept going. So it was all just one motion basically, which just shows his brilliance once again. Yeah.
Second half of that question was composers, soundtracks.
Orchestral soundtrack and otherwise, favorite orchestral records, composers, or pieces.
Well, in film, I Sure Love Me, my John Williams.
Oh yeah.
He's just so great. He's the king daddy of everyone living right now, and I don't think that you find anyone. He's like the Beatles of film composers. This is not just Star Wars. I mean, if you listen to the Spielberg stuff, what was the movie? Tintin. The score on that is fantastic. Anyway, he's so great at thematic stuff. His orchestration, his arranging is just to die for. Thomas Newman. I love Thomas Newman. I love her. And Alexander Desplat is a wonderful French composer, film composer. Just all their soundtracks. Just check him out. He does all the Wes Anderson films. Okay. Island of Dogs. What was the one before that? That's a really good score. Fabulous Mr. Fox. That's a great score. He's real good with, particularly with ethnic stuff and unusual instrumentation. I think I like his more unusual stuff than I like his orchestral material. But he's really great. I love him.
Okay.
Jerry Goldsmith, he's done everything with Planet of the Apes, all kinds of movies. He's not around anymore. Those scores are fantastic. And in classical music, there's Ravel and it's Debussy, there's Stravinsky, Rite of Spring, Holst Planets. That's a great one. It's kind of like the pop music of orchestral stuff. Holst Planets is a good one to listen to. So much great stuff out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I was curious about the evolution of your guitar rig. And I know you were using Hamer quite a bit back when you were with Todd, I believe. What was like your first good axe and rig, and how did they evolve over the years?
Well, I had a Les Paul Deluxe when I was pretty young. I was about 19 or so. That was a pretty nice guitar. And then I had a 335, a 66 335 for a while. Then I just wanted to have the whammy bar, so I got more into Strats. But later on, when I started making a little bit of cash, I started buying older instruments. So I've got a nice collection of old.
Well, I can imagine, being a studio cat, it's almost like being a painter with a box full of different colors to use.
Yeah, you want to have some of those colors.
I see the Fender 12 behind you right there. That's
yeah. I've got a good collection of.
I can almost hear the jangle from here.
Yeah, that's the Stairway to Heaven guitar.
That's and also Tommy Pete used one on.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Quite a bit. Yeah. So any 12 string you hear on that, like on.
Who was another big band for me? We mentioned them very briefly. Yeah, that was like my favorite rock band.
Me too.
Over Zeppelin, I was like, I was a little bit more into the Who world. I think probably because the lyrics, there was something in its lyrics that sort of related to my teenage angst. Although I really love Led Zeppelin too. Come on.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Well, it's funny. My older brother's 16 years my senior. So when I was like 2, and so he was bringing home Tommy and the first Chicago albums.
Oh, right on.
Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And I instantly loved those more than my little kid records. And one of
Right.
the first things I knew how to do was put on the headphones and put a record on the record player. And Tommy was the one. And it's funny because I didn't really know what it was about. I knew it was about Tommy, but I didn't really understand the storyline. And it's probably just as well because it's not really a kid-friendly story when you
It's
dig
not.
into it.
No.
But I had a book from Dr. Seuss called Horton Hears a Who.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
just assumed it was about a who named Tommy. Yeah.
Horton Hears the Who.
I love that album. I've actually had the pleasure of performing it with a local group here a few times.
Oh,
Just doing the whole thing top to bottom. Yeah, I get these ambitious streaks sometimes, where it's just like,
that's a lot.
Let's do the whole wall. Let's do Tommy, and
Yeah, I got to be friends with the two guitar players that were in the pit band for Tommy, the Broadway Tommy.
oh wow, okay.
Yeah, and through Hamer, my association with Hamer Guitars, which was Joel Danzig, who started Hamer with a partner of his, two partners. And so through Joel, I ended up meeting these guitar players, and I actually sat in front of them and watched them do Tommy in the pit. That was really fun, because they looked at the book and all the stuff was written out, but like, listen to the record, that's not exactly the right voicing. So they really made sure to make it exactly right.
Oh,
They did it right, man.
Any windmills?
Not in the pit, no, because you're going to hit up.
Be a little dangerous down there. It's like, darn, you knocked my music stand over. Thanks, Pete.
Right.
Okay, well, does anybody have any more questions? We're probably going to wrap it up here at midnight. So I'm just curious if there's anything you want to share with us, Lyle, that we haven't gone over yet also.
No, I'm hoping I answered everyone's questions.
Yeah, I think we got all the ones that were in here. If anybody has any more questions, type them in here now or forever hold your peace. And I appreciate y'all dropping by. A lot of new faces here. Looks like a lot of your friends dropped in tonight. So
That's cool.
Thank you for sharing this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I just love talking with, studio guys and sidemen because they have such diverse careers. You do so many things. Like, guys that are in one band kind of have one thing they do, and that alone is exciting and interesting to talk about. But this is so many more avenues to discuss. So thank you for taking.
Yeah, I've had these interesting sidelines of career opportunities. When I moved to Los Angeles in '96, I had no designs on scoring anything. I never thought about scoring films, but just all these things kind of happened that led me there. And luckily, my interest in music, because when I was talking about how I like Johnny Winter, but then Johnny Winter liked Albert Lee, so I better see what that guy's all about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, same thing with Mahavishnu Orchestra. Then I had to find out what Miles Davis was about, because that's where John McLaughlin came from. So you're going back and getting the roots of all that stuff. And I was increasing my grab bag of interests. And anytime you really love a piece of music, if you're a player, I wonder if I could play that line. I wonder if I could learn how to play this, or get the sheet music, or see what it's all about and learn about it. So I was sort of training myself how to be a composer without really knowing it.
Okay.
Just by opening my ears and increasing my musicianship to a level to where I can, hear an orchestral piece and go, okay, I hear what's going on there. And then I also took an orchestration class that was really nice here in UCLA. I took a course and learned a lot about sort of the nuts and bolts of it. But I learned a lot more from just being in the field and working with my orchestrator and asking questions and all that kind of stuff.
Irma McLeod says, "Good night, Lyle. We love you."
Oh, hi, Irma. I love you too, sweetie.
Yeah. Stan Cody says, "Please ask Lyle to talk about listening to Who masters in Manchester in the 90s." Is that ringing any bells?
Oh, my gosh. Hi, Stan. Stan is a great talent, man. So Stan, no, I guess he was living in England working for the Harrison Company, or was it, or Neve, or I can't remember what company it was. But anyway, I was playing with with Frank Black at the time, and we had a record that was being mixed by Andy McPherson, who was job prior to that was mixing and remastering all the Who material.
Oh, nice.
And so when I found out that Andy had done that, he mixed a Frank Black record, and so I totally gushed my love for the Who to Andy. And he said, "If you're ever in Manchester, mate, give me a call. I'll play you some stuff." So we were in Manchester, and I visited his studio, and he had Andy had all of the Who masters in a box. They were been digitized to the format. It was an Adam 12-track, I believe it was. And so he says, "What do you want to hear?" And we just put in a tape, and then here's the faders if you want to hear what's going on. So we'll put on Who's Next. So there's 8 faders, and just listening and stuff, and just freaking out. Like I felt like the 10-year-old who goes to Disneyland for the first time.
I can imagine.
Yeah, quite an
Holy
experience.
Grail.
Yeah, because back then, no one had. Nowadays, with all the masters are on YouTube, and you can hear Freddie Mercury's voice, isolated. But back then, none of that stuff was floating around. So it was quite a treat.
Oh, I can imagine. What's your favorite Who album?
Who's Next?
Okay.
It's just such a strong piece.
Any love?
I like Quadrophenia a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I like Tommy.
Any love for Who Are You?
Yeah.
Yeah. I always thought that was almost like their Broadway album.
Yeah.
Songs
well,
are.
they still had Keith, so that's good.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But
and Who?
I like some of the stuff after that too.
I do too. You Better You Bet and Eminence Front's one of the best, I think.
Yeah.
And Who by Numbers, that's kind of a lost one that gets kind of lost.
Remember Pure and Easy?
Yeah. No, I think.
Or is that Odds and Sods?
Yeah, Odds and Sods. Yeah. But it has like However Much I May Booze and.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. It's got Squeezebox on it, right?
Yeah, but
I'm not so down with Squeezebox, but
no, but everything else on it is like lost tracks because that album just never gets much love because it's like after. Well, how do you follow Quadrophenia? You just kind of don't. You just get a batch of unrelated songs and make another album.
That was a 16-track album.
Oh yeah,
that one. Yeah. It was twice the amount of faders.
Okay, yeah. I love that tune "Success Story" with all the 12-string bass and stuff on it. I don't even think there's any guitar on that. I think it's all bass.
What song is that?
You remember the one in the movie where John Entwistle goes out and takes his gold records and shoots them like Skeet? You remember that? And the Kids Are All Right movie? There's like a little segment where he's like walking down the stairs, passing all these bases.
All the bases up on the walls?
Yeah, and then he goes out and he's like, pull, and he's boom, and shoots his gold records like they're Skeet. Which I thought was pretty funny. And yeah, it's to that song, Success Story,
Yeah.
So yeah. Great one. Yeah. Love the Who. I mean, that's kind of where it all started for me,
Yeah.
And just, still love it all these years. I saw him a couple years ago. Did you see the tour, the symphonic one, the last one?
No, the last one I saw was Quadrophenia.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was great too. Well,
that was maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, the one with the orchestra, Zach was using electronic drums, so it kind of, it was a little lesser because of that, I think. But
yeah, I would think so.
Probably just easier to control the sound on stage by using them.
Oh yeah, I understand why they would do that.
Yeah, it's a fine balance there for sure. Okay, let's see here. Okay, I think I got just about everybody's questions here. And my friend Sharon says hi. She says, good to finally meet the guitarist behind the Nearly Human tour and album. So, yeah.
Me too.
Very cool. All righty. Well, coming up, I think I mentioned, I don't know if you've checked in on King Crimson lately, but they've swollen to a 7-piece lineup with 3 drummers.
I was going to say 6 drummers and a guitar player.
Exactly. Well, it's interesting the way they did it. I mean, it's very orchestrated the way the 3 drummers. They'll like sometimes.
3 is it?
It's Gavin Harrison, Pat Mastelotto, and Jeremy Stacy, who did on the Licorice Quartet album as well. Yeah. And the way they will take a fill in pass it around like hot potatoes is amazing.
I've seen some of that online. It's really good.
And, it's not like some people are like, oh, it takes 3 guys to take Bill Bruford's place. And it's like, no, that's not what this is about.
No.
This is something new that even Bill Bruford would really appreciate.
Oh, sure. Those are 3 great drummers, man.
It literally took Gavin months to get together and arrange all of those drum parts. So, they're playing a lot of the old material that they hadn't touched since the 70s. All these songs with woodwinds and mellotron and all that. The 80s Discipline lineup just wouldn't have been well suited to do that.
I saw that band a few times.
Oh, I can imagine. That was awesome, huh?
It was unbelievable. Yeah.
They were, it's a different ball of wax, but equally impressive. The 70s stuff versus the 80s. The 80s was really informed by the New York scene, Talking Heads, Blondie, because Fripp was hanging out with all those folks.
Yeah.
And when the Discipline came out, it really had a bit of a Talking Heads kind of vibe. Even Blue kind of sings a bit like, and Blue was in the Talking Heads as well. So it's all kind of tied together. But yeah, who says progressive rock died in the 70s? You just got to dig around a little more.
It's still going.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so anyhow, it's my point being, we have the vocalist from King Crimson coming up, Jocko Jaksic, on Thursday.
Wow.
And we're going to be chatting with him about his new solo album. And later this month, I've got Steve Hackett, Chester Thompson, Brian Beller for starters. So, stay tuned and more stuff in the works.
I've seen Steve Hackett a couple times. That's really great to see. I'm so glad that someone is carrying that Genesis flag.
Oh, yeah, and he does it better than just about anybody. There are some great tribute bands out there. The Musical Box, I'm sure you probably...
Yeah, I saw them too. Yeah, they're really good.
They're great, but, there's nothing like one of the guys that was part of doing it.
Yeah.
And I just love his guitar playing. It's so lyrical, and
great. Yeah, and his classical guitar playing is.
Oh man, he could have made a living as a classical guitarist in an orchestra and not even done rock and roll.
It's that one record where he's I can't remember the name of it.
Guitar Noir.
No, it's with an orchestra. It's really pretty stuff.
Yeah, well, he's got so many. He's very prolific. He's still puts out a new album every year, pretty much.
Wow.
And they're usually kind of in the progressive vein. If anybody took that progressive mindset that 70s Genesis had with them, it was Steve. To this day, he's doing music that.
I'm glad he's doing that. It's really great to hear.
Such a great player. Just love his playing. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That's I feel very blessed to get a chance to chat with you all, and excited to see.
I was going to say when we talked about King Crimson, I know you want to wrap it up.
No, but we got time. We can go as long as you want.
I was in a period of way into Robin Ford, like the jazzier Robin Ford, like Yellow Jackets and Larry Carlton, and the jazz, Holdsworth. We're way into Holdsworth, and then that record came out with Adrian Belew, and I saw that show Fridays. They did Elephant Talk.
Sure.
And I was at a jam session with some of my San Jose buddies, and we stopped because, hey, the King Crimson's going to be on TV. And we turned it on, and I was like, it completely blew my mind. I thought, oh, I want to go in that direction now.
Sure.
I want to get freaky with some pedals, and it's just another whole way of way of playing guitar that was really inspiring.
Oh, absolutely. And I have to say that Fridays, I think, is some of the finest live footage of that lineup.
That is good.
A fire and a kind of excitement that they had right out of the gate that I think kind of waned a bit in the coming years with the next 2 records. You see Fripp smiling, grinning, and playing all these crazy atonal licks that are almost improvised over the top of it. And, a few years later, I don't know.
That's quite a performance, that Fridays thing.
Oh, yeah, I love it. That Thala and Jinjeet and Talk. Yeah, just totally scorching, So, yeah, love that, And I can't think of anybody else on Fridays. That's like the only Fridays footage I ever bothered to look up. It was like Saturday Night Live, but Friday. you know. Yeah, so that was a cool show. All righty. Well, I guess we ought to wrap it up. Lyle, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Sean.
Go down memory lane with you and get the ins and outs of being a studio musician and a touring guy too. So,
pleasure.
Keep an eye out. Keep your eyes posted. Do you have a fan page at Facebook that they should go like, or should they just send you?
Yeah, I do have an artist page.
Okay.
I also have another page, but I think I'm almost at my limit. Yeah, I'm just about at my limit.
All righty.
I only have 5, but I do have another page, an artist page.
Yeah, well, stay posted. And once it's going to be released, let's get in touch and we'll talk about it some more.
Great. Thanks. I appreciate it.
All right. My pleasure. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
You too. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And I hope you all out there stay safe and healthy as well. You are stronger than you know. Hang on there. It's going to get better. All right. Take care, Lyle.
You too. Thanks, Sean. Bye-bye.
My pleasure. Take care.